Sword and Scimitar tells the story of the men and women caught up in the events surrounding the Great Siege of Malta in 1565. The hero, Sir Thomas Barrett, is an English Knight of the Order of St. John, one of the bands of religious warriors who had been fighting the onslaught of Islam since the earliest days of the Crusades. Sir Thomas is a fine soldier with great courage who is devoted to the cause. But when he rescues a young woman from a Turkish galley, her name is Maria, it changes both their lives forever. The Great Siege of Malta is one of the turning points of history. At that time, the forces of Islam were sweeping all before them. A few years before the story takes place, Sultan Suleiman's army had been at the gates of Vienna. Elsewhere, his influence extended all the way round the Mediterranean, and Suleiman was poised to invade the heart of Europe. But to do that, he first needed to take the small island of Malta, which was defended by the Knights of St. John. If Suleiman could crush the Knights and seize Malta, then his next steps would be to take Sicily and then invade Italy and capture Rome, the very heart of the Christian world. If Suleiman had succeeded in taking Malta, then it is likely that Europe today would be dominated by Islam. That's how high the stakes were, and it is also why the Great Siege of Malta was one of the most cruel and bitterly fought conflicts in history, pitting warrior against warrior and religion against religion in an epic fight to the very end. And the outcome of the siege changed the world forever. The idea for Sword and Scimitar came to me during a visit to Malta some years ago. Although I'd known about the siege, I had never before visited the island. But as we sailed into the Grand Harbour, past the huge fortifications that date back to the days of the Knights of St. John, the tragic fort of St. Elmo to your right and the headquarters of the defenders in Fort St. Angelo to your left, I could not help but be awed by their scale. Then I went ashore and explored Valletta, the town named after the heroic Grand Master who commanded the garrison in 1565. There's a fantastic museum in the Grand Master's palace with displays of the weapons and armour of the time. History just seems to seep out of every rock and stone on Malta. I spent a little time on the island and started to read accounts of the siege and was inspired by the heroism of the men, women and even children who defended their home against the most powerful army in the world at that time. I was also impressed by the dogged courage and fanaticism of the Turks who suffered such huge losses during the campaign. So once I returned home, I began the years of research and writing that culminated in Sword and Scimitar, which I consider to be the best written, most moving novel that I've written so far in my career. Sword and Scimitar is going to be enjoyed by anyone with an interest in history and the impact that religion has had on history. There's also a mystery and conspiracy at the heart of the story, which deals with a secret that threatens the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. So that should please the Dan Brown readers out there. But the real core of the novel is Sir Thomas's battle with his faith and his conscience, and how that affects his love for Maria, the one woman in his life. It's a story about what really matters in the end, once you have stripped away religion, duty, and all your other obligations, and all that's left is what is deep inside your heart. If you like novels like Victoria Hislop's The Island, then you're going to love Sword and Scimitar.